Hi, and welcome to our little crack in the bat, some little interviews that we do here for the Irish American Baseball Society. And I am truly honored and blessed to welcome one of my dearest friends, Duke Castiglione from Channel 5 in Boston. In the spirit of full disclosure, Duke and I have known each other for over 20 years, and we have had a lot of battles, and we even went to Ireland together.
Yes.
It was a wonderful time, and one of the highlights of the trip was we were in the tiny town of Ballyconnell, and Duke, who's one of the nicest guys I know, had the audacity to ask a bartender for more than 2 pieces of ice for his soda, and he got called an obnoxious American.
I did.
So, Duke, it's great to be here, and you know what? It's for once it's good that you're answering the questions, not asking them, because
I know it's a little bit weird. I was telling you before we get on the air. This is my Zoom sweater that I wear for every Zoom interview that I do in our dining room here. That's how much the world has changed. Where you're interviewing athletes and everything in your dining room in your Irish knit sweater, which somebody, by the way, Shaun, accused of being a bathrobe on the air.
You know what? It could be, but once there's not a rope for it, we're going to cover the whole, what your job is like now. But to go back a little bit, I mean, we could call you the alphabet man because you've worked for ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox 5, New York One, and ESPN. I mean, you've really covered the gamut. I mean,
I don't think. No, I never did NBC. So I did New York One when we met.
Didn't you work for an NBC affiliate?
Oh, you're right. I did. Ooh, I take that back.
I did my research here.
I take that back.
You're wondering that,
I guess you're right. I did. I forgot about that.
Won an Emmy Award for the best sports show. My favorite, you have 2 Black Journalist Awards. But the one thing I saw in your Wikipedia that I wasn't aware of, you were a substitute teacher?
Yeah, I was. Actually, when I broke into television, in, let's see, I got out of school in 96 and I was interning down the Cape at Cape 11 TV. And then, I had to make money being a substitute teacher at Marshfield High and the Marshfield school system. Then I went out to Springfield and I was at the ABC station in Springfield, Channel 40, and I was only part-time. So I had to do substitute teach during the day because I was literally making $10.50 an hour at the TV station. So I was making more money as a substitute teacher. So that's a true story.
What are you teaching?
Well, whatever. I mean, I did math class. I did shop. I did, whatever. There was a really nice guy named Dick Cunningham that was in charge of the Chicopee school system. So he would always get me, if I needed a job, but basically the phone rings at 7 o'clock in the morning and they ask you if you can, for the most part, they ask you if you're available to substitute or, 6:30, I forget what it was, or, they try to set you up the day before. So, and then I met my wife, whom got married, and I think she let me quit stuff. No, I actually, while we were married, I still did it. So I did it for a while.
So you did it till you came to New York then? Because, I mean, you definitely...
Yeah, actually, I did it till I came to New York, probably. Well, I probably backed off the last year,
so. So let's go back. You were born in Ohio, I believe, Parma.
Yeah.
Correct. So your dad was out there.
I don't remember that, Shaun.
Your mom, and that's so. Just we have an award that I had to name after Duke in the Irish American Baseball because for the last 20 years he's persisted in telling me that he's half Irish, which he is. Mom is
more than half Irish. I mean, more of me is Irish than I'm quarter Sicilian, quarter German, half Irish.
And so we named an award, the Duke Castiglione and Pete Caldera. I didn't know they were Irish awards. So you grew up. So your grandparents in Springfield. What was it like being around them? Was there, did they give you some kind of sense of what it was to be Irish?
My grandparents. So my and I didn't find this out till you and I went to the Irish embassy when I did a speech in in New York. What was our man's name there? He was really nice. The consulate.
Oh,
I think.
and Neil.
Yes, very, very nice man. So anyway, he explained it to me, Shaun, that when I told him my parents, my mom was from Youngstown, Ohio, and he said, "You must be a Mayo man." And I said, "Yeah, the family's from Mayo. How'd you know that?" And he said, "Well, what happened is a lot of people from Mayo went to go work in the steel mills in Northeast Ohio and Kentucky." And I do believe that my grandfather's father came in, first settled in Kentucky and then made his way up to Northeast Ohio. I think they went to the coal mines in Kentucky first, and then a lot of the Irish from Mayo, he said, went to Northeast Ohio. But, that's right. I mean, and I believe some went to Cleveland, but a lot went to Youngstown, Ohio. So there's a lot of Mayo people. So, yeah, I did understand. My mom's one of 10. Very Irish Catholic religious family. And then, so yeah, I definitely got a sense of what it was to be Irish. And then we moved to Boston. Well, I spent, the first 10 years right outside of Cleveland. And then I moved to Boston, and I moved particularly to the South Shore, which we call the Irish Riviera here. I got a real sense of what it was to be Irish, especially with an Italian last name. Nobody believed I was Irish.
Yeah. So you mentioned it there. You moved. So your dad was with the Indians. He was with the Brewers. So
he was a local TV guy too.
So the thing is, one of my favorite pictures that hung on in Castig's corner in Foley's was a picture of you playing catch with Bob Feller. So yeah. So I was just thinking when I was doing my research, I'm like, so you were around clubhouses, around athletes. Mm-hmm. Do you think that made your job easier because you had a different kind of relationship with them or a different experience of dealing with them?
Yeah, I think it made it much easier. I mean, and I do remember my father telling me specifically on the way home, these guys put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. And you see, you understand the way a clubhouse works. You understand the way a football locker room works because, when he was a local TV guy, I go with him and I was literally in the locker rooms. You understand the way an NBA team works. You understand, the mechanics of that. It made a profound effect on me. I also understood, like, from a very young age, like, if a guy, I remember putting together a guy's locker after he had a bad first big league start, Brett Saberhagen, I'll tell you who it was at age 19. And, how guys get frustrated at their jobs, just like you and I do, if we don't have a good day. And you learn, that, emotions. I think I've learned more, Shaun, the mental side of the games, being in the locker room all the time. That makes sense.
Yeah, so you see these as more human people as opposed to
more human people. Right. That, I remember guys being so superstitious and, not changing routine. And I do think one of the things that really impacted me was, and it was something, I was having a conversation with Tom House the other day about the great ones, how hard they work. I just remember, and now guys get to the locker room and clubhouses even earlier than they used to. But I mean, just the hard work, the amount of swings guys would take, or the amount of football guys are at the locker room at 6:30 in the morning. I mean, the work that goes into it, it's more than, we see in those 2.5 or 3.5 hours that guys are on the field.
So 1983, your dad gets the job with the Red Sox. Now, you just mentioned it there. So you what age were you when you started to go and work as a clubby?
I was 10. I was 10 years old. It was the summer, so we could not. It was during I don't know if it was a recession, so to speak, at the time. I know interest rates were really, really high. We had trouble selling our house in Cleveland, and we were in Solon, Ohio. And my dad was staying at the Swiss Chalet, or the Sweezy Chalet. We didn't know how to pronounce it, on Route 9 in Newton and in Chestnut Hill. And I think he got a good rate there. He wasn't making a ton of money. But we would go to my grandparents in Connecticut, and we'd see him when he was in New York. And I think we drove up a couple times, and then he had I might have been a little bit of a pain to my mom, so I had to stay with my grandparents and my father at the Sweezy Chalet. So, which I loved because I was going to the ballpark every day. And then, he's on the air, and, I need something to do, so I worked in the clubhouse. It was a great experience.
How long did you do that for?
I probably I did that more when I was 11 and 12 and then 13. And then I remember it was the year Roger Clemens had it was 86 because I remember wish I was at the ballpark that night. It was the year Clemens had the
20 strikeouts?
The 20 strikeouts, which we just had the 35th anniversary of. I probably did that more for 4 or 5 years, so I started playing a lot more games in the summer and that type of thing.
So
it was mostly on weekend. My parents wouldn't let me go to the ballpark and do it on a school night.
Right. So father calling from Ireland. So Stonehill grad with a huge shout out to Lou Gorman.
Yeah, we have big Irish. We have the Irish Festival at Stonehill every year.
And of course, didn't you have a teacher who used to collect for the boys? Weren't there collections made for the
Oh yeah. I didn't know what you meant. Yeah, that was rumored. I don't know. Are you talking about over in Northern Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there has always been rumors that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. I never.
So okay. So moving swiftly along.
Yes, I never heard that.
So
took me a while to get what you're referring
to. Did you have aspirations? Did you want to be a ball player?
Yeah, I wanted to play. And the funny thing is I wanted to play so bad, and I wanted to sign a minor league contract. And I have a real good friend named Dennis Reed, and comes from a big family in West Roxbury. He's so talented. He got drafted, but he also got a college scholarship. And I guess he understood the business of baseball before I did. Like, this is an opportunity to go to school. And I remember him saying something like, it's the way the minor league system is set up. It's you get out in a couple of years, and then do I intern, at John Hancock or Fidelity at age 22, or do I wait till I'm done with minor league ball at 27? And it was kind of how he explained that to me. And then I started doing minor league games in New Haven as an intern and doing some radio broadcasts, and that was at the AA level. I think what you see is the way the system is made up. There's a lot of what they call system guys, right? So you get drafted, maybe you're a 30th round pick, or I think they've cut the draft down to 20. But those guys, a lot of those guys are there to help 3, 4, 5 guys make it to the next level. And I didn't understand that until I got there. Like, I wanted to be a ball player so bad, but it's just like the 1% of 1% of 1% is what we see in the major leagues. That's why they're big leaguers. And I think that's when it all kind of hit in. Like, okay, I'm glad I also kind of realized when I went to the Connecticut Wooden Bat League, like, ooh, I'm not very good. These kids, I gave up some bombs. I remember I gave up a bomb at I hung a slider to a kid, and he was a first-round pick of the Blue Jays. I think his name was Jim Tanucci or Tonelli from Providence College. He hit this thing 9 miles, and I just said, I think I better intern at Nesson next fall. That was kind of the moment, like, oof, I'm not on the same level here.
So is it fair to say, let's say high school Duke or even college Duke, the only 2 things that you wanted to do is be a ball player or be a broadcaster?
I think I only wanted to be a ball player, and with the idea that with being a broadcaster was, I wanted, but I knew what I wanted to do from a very young age because my dad did. But I wanted to put that off till I chased my ball playing dream. But it was in college when I was like, ooh, These guys that play pro ball are really, really good. The guys you don't see going to the major leagues are really, really good.
Yeah.
So
you notice that, like you said, you go to a minor league game and you see a guy and you think, well, he doesn't belong here. He's so out of his league. And then you see him get called up and he goes 0 for 19. You think
or how about this? Player. Or how about this? You see the 20 when you look at a minor league team and you see the guy that's the 23rd guy on the roster, just realize he was not only the best player in his town, he was the best player in his county and probably one of the best players in his state.
Yeah.
And you just think about it in those terms. And I certainly was not the best player at my school. I was not the best player in my town. I certainly was not the best player in my county. So
not state for either for that matter.
No. So, it was, that was the summer I kind of had a realization. Okay.
So you intern?
I interned at New England Sports Network. It was great. While I was still wrapping up at Stonehill. And then I worked the overnight shift there. And then, the following, it was my first stint in New York. My dad put me at the Lee Strasberg School to kind of get some experience being in front of the camera. And we had more interpersonal communications at Stonehill, although we put a lot of people in broadcasting, but it was more, mass media and interpersonal communications as opposed to what my wife and my dad had at Syracuse, where they learn the mechanics of the day-to-day newsroom. And then I came back home and substitute taught and went to Cape 11 and then eventually to Springfield and eventually to New York One, where I met you.
So that would probably have been like June. It was the summer of 2001.
No, I came to New York in the summer of May. I came to New York Memorial Day weekend 2000.
So we met in 2001.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, you're right. No, sorry, you're
no,
right.
We met in 2000.
We met in 2000. You're right. So
because you were at McGee's, and then
I was a bartender, and this was back when you could smoke inside. And Duke and I went through a phase where we would enjoy an odd stogie, probably something very cheap, but they were. So he came to the bar, and people might find this hard to believe, but I was pontificating about baseball behind the bar, and I was putting forward a premise that it was a couple of days after the infamous Bobby Valentine disguise in the dugout. I put forward a theory that this was Bobby's way of trying to get fired. And so the next thing is two guys leave. Duke and I start to talk. He tells me he's a sportscaster. I'm like, that's pretty cool. This is the first famous sportscaster I've met. Of course, I had to try and figure out if I had New York One. So he said, yeah, I'm on the air, I think Tuesday night. So, Tuesday night, I tune in and Duke comes on. And the next thing is he says, I have a funny theory about Bobby Valentine. I said, I'm thinking that son of a bitch just stole my idea. And I was like, and that.
Hey, Shaun, there only, what did Shakespeare say? There's only 7 original ideas. Everything else, everybody takes. So that was. Remember what a fun summer that was, though. I mean, it was the summer of Subway Series and then Subway World Series. Yeah. So it was like everybody was just so baseball crazy that year.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I want to cover that. I mean, you were here. You were here for some great times and for some of the teams and some horrible times for some of the other teams. But before we get to that, so I want to ask you, who was your first interview?
My first interview professionally, I remember, was when I was at Cape 11. It was Ted Kennedy at a Special Olympic event, and that was fun. That was really like, wow. My first interview, like for a book report or something.
No, I mean, that's kind of what
my first interview in New York.
Who was your first in New York?
I remember a couple of the firsts. We got a lot of great guests in New York One. Mark Weingarten, our EP, did a great job. We had Bill Russell in, he was great. We had Joe Theismann in, he was great. We had, I'm trying to think my first. Gene Michael used to always come on.
We had some fun times at Stick.
Yeah, we did. I mean, he was a nice man. I was just telling somebody the other day. I mean, I was a kid in New York. He'd come in for me. Here's this guy that built the Yankee dynasty and taught me literally. So I was telling Danny Donato, who played in the Yankee system, I was telling him, how nice he was to me. I mean, everybody loved the Stick. I mean, he would talk to players. Jeter loved him, but he had time for everybody. He was just such a nice guy. And so I would say those were kind of my first interviews.
Do you remember we had a night in Oldcastle with during the playoffs when the Yankees were playing the Angels and Stick was there, and Stick in his bag and he pulled out a sheet of paper and he threw it at the TV, and I said, Stick, what's wrong? He said, that's my scouting report for the Angels, he said, and the MFers didn't even read it.
Yeah, well, he was. I mean, he saw the game just differently than I remember. I was telling somebody the other day that you watch a guy dive right for a ground ball. If he comes up short and doesn't skid across the grass or the infield, he's not a great athlete. Yeah. And the great ones don't always have to dive. You talked about range and movement, and
Did you ever go to a game with Stick?
Oh yeah, I sat with him.
That was one of the greatest experiences ever, because he would tell you'd be like oohing, like you said, you're oohing and ahhing at a great play made by the third baseman, and Stick's like, nah, he has no range. And
right. It's just it was different, but it taught me a lot. And he would tell you like what's a guy's time to first base, and I remember him telling me, I'm still shocked that who do you think had the second fastest time at one point to first base in the American League? I'm like, after Ichiro was first. I'm like, I don't know. And Wade Boggs. I'm like, what? And he's like, look at the reports. So
Boggs fast.
Yeah.
So back to I was always curious with this. Was there, and I don't want you to name names, but was there any player that was either like a real dick to you when you were in the clubhouse, or was really nice to you, who you came across in your professional career, where you had a chance to say, you know what, you were a real dick to me when I was a clubby for the Red Sox? Or were they all good guys?
Well, I was so young. They had fun, like teasing me and stuff. I was so young. I'll tell you a funny story. I was a kid, and they were nice to me. They were like, it was kind of like, he's a kid. He's like 10 years old. I was a chubby kid, and I think they I did errands for him. Would go to guys won't eat McDonald's before a game now, but there was a McDonald's. I don't know if you remember the old McDonald's near Fenway. Yeah. It's now a big apartment complex. I'd go get them, Big Macs not Big Mac. Yeah, Big Macs, McDonald's. And if a guy had a good game, I'd go back the next day. And, or I watched cartoons with Don Sutton was great to me. I remember, watching cartoons with him, and then, seeing him, he's a friend of my dad's, a fellow broadcaster, and I'd tell him those stories. Or I saw Ricky Henderson. Ricky was really nice to me. I remember he would DH, he would come up, he'd ride the exercise bike in between. I remember he was in a slump one time. He started a year like 0 for 44, and he was still nice to us. And I remember seeing him when I was out in Minnesota at the All-Star game, getting a picture with him, and or interviewing him when I was at Channel 2 in New York. And just remembering those times about he was really nice to me professionally.
But there's probably some of those broadcasts.
Oh, I just did it the other day, Shaun, with Tom House. I had an interview with him for a story I was doing, and I was telling him how nice he was to me as a kid. I got one for you that you'll love. So I'm like 10 years old, and Tom Kelly's the third base coach for the Twins, and Tom is one of these guys that is kind of grumpy, but really really nice guy. I mean, you know him, right? Deep down. So I'm like 10, and they got these new practice jerseys he's making everybody wear. And it's like tight at the neck. And he's like, listen, kid, because I did all the laundry. If you steal this jersey and make it go away, I'll give you $10 or something. So we're at the new Yankee Stadium, and Tom's now like an advanced scout for, just one of the – Yeah, for the Twins. And there's no tables open, so I said, Tom, hey, Tom. I said, you won't remember this, but I certainly remember this. I was like 10 years old, and I was a clubhouse kid, and you asked me to steal your jersey. He just lost it. He thought that was like the funniest thing ever. So I got like a dissertation in baseball, like stuff like I'll never forget. Like he's like, this new stadium has lost its like intimidation factor. He goes, I remember you would be at the old stadium and the umpires were afraid to call strike three because the fans were right on top of you. And I'm going, wow. Yeah, the umpires were afraid. I'm like, that's a pretty good point on a Yankee player, And, he just went on and on about like inside baseball that I would never have got to. I've heard some of these things, but not from Tom Kelly's perspective, world champion manager. But it was all just because everybody, he thought that was the greatest story ever. I was like 10. Later in life, so I remember like going with this kid, Jackie Burke, to buy Dave Rigetti WWF, not WWE tickets. It was WWF at the time. So I had to get on the train, take the green line to North Station with Jackie. He was older. And buy him WWE tickets for Getty that night. And I'm sure he tipped us out. He was a big star with the Yankees. This is like 1986. So I'm doing a Sunday night baseball game in San Francisco. Or maybe it was at Dodger Stadium, and Rigetti was the pitching coach. I'm like, hey, I was a kid. I went and bought you WWF tickets. He's looking at me like, what? I'm the sideline reporter for the game that night. So, but he was really nice to me too. So yeah, I have some great stories like that. George Brett was really nice to me. I remember like he got me in a headlock just because I was a little kid and he playfully, but he had forearms on him that like were twice the size of mine. I mean, I'm sure when you're like 12 years old, you're like, but like guys were like nice to me like that, like or give me baseball tips. I mean, I remember I'm getting baseball tips from George Brett, who was like the biggest star in the game at the time. So I have, it wasn't like, it was a playful, like, come here, kid, and I just remember.
So we don't have a story that you got abused by George Brett abuses 10-year-old. We don't. No.
No. It was like, hey, come here, I mean, he was just such a wonderful guy. Robin Yount was another guy. Like, hey, give me 5, kid. It was like that kind of stuff.
What about? Didn't you get some catching tips from Tony Pena?
Oh yeah, so Tony was my buddy. Tony was. I mean, he worked so hard. I mean, I was a vendor at Fenway, and he'd work out with me before the game. I mean, it was unbelievable. Like I had this glove that had like it was worn, had a hole in it here. He could relace it, and we'd throw together like, and he taught me how to get it out of my, just catch it, pull it right to your ear, and your feet will take care of itself. And like it turned me around a little bit. He had the best hands I've ever seen. And he was just such a nice guy. I mean, it was unbelievable. We long tossed together all the time. I remember throwing a ball over Jack Clark's head, long tossing. I don't think Jack Clark liked a 16-year-old throwing a ball over his head, but that was a different story.
And of course, he told you not to touch that buckle on his catching gear.
The what?
The buckle that was sharp on the catching gear.
I don't even know what you're talking about there. That's why I'm like, they're talking about pine tar and everything. I'm like, I mean, I was a clubhouse kid. I'm like, guys had, do we think guys just started using bullfrog? And I mean, Listen to that podcast, by the way, The Edge. Have you heard that one?
No.
About the Astros cheating scandal. It's unbelievable. It takes you kind of through the history of what guys have done in baseball.
So you mentioned
to get an edge.
You mentioned Clemens.
Yeah, he's my all-time favorite, Shaun.
Well, I have to tell you, we did an event with him at Foley.
Yeah,
I was blown away. I mean, blown away by how nice he was. I mean, how much time he spent with me. The wife came. Yeah. She says, she says, Roger doesn't warm up to too many people, but he really likes you. And then he sent me a box of stuff. I mean, it was
he's a wonderful guy.
Right. So my question to you is, it's a two-part question.
I did his 300th game, right?
Yes. And 300 game, that was the same.
4,000 strikeout against the Cardinals, June 15th, 2003.
Wasn't it Edgar Renteria? I think Edgar
Was it?
Renteria, yeah.
Was he 4,000?
I actually went to Detroit for one of his, and I was in Chicago.
He was supposed to start that game for 300 against Chicago. It got rained out. You were there.
No. He started the one. Detroit was where he got rained out before I got. There.
Chicago. Did Mo blow the save that game?
No, one of those bad relievers that they had in the early 2000s did. That was the game where they had to bring an ambulance onto the field to take the first baseman up. Hee-Seop Choi. Oh
yeah, I don't remember that part.
Yeah,
I remember it was a Saturday. It was really hot.
It was Saturday. It was really hot, but the thing about was Brian McRae, another buddy of ours.
Right.
Brian McRae was there, and he says, "Hey, are you here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm here." He said, "Okay." He said, "Clemens does this tonight. The Yankees have a party planned, and you're invited."
Oh, wow.
And I was just thinking, "Oh shit, I've got to go and buy a pair of long pants because I just brought my shorts." So back to the question.
Right.
So have you ever gone to an interview with somebody that you don't know, expecting him to be like a complete ass and it to be the other way around? And I've had a couple of them, like John Lester. I mean, all I'd ever heard about John Lester was what an ass he could be. John Lester walked into Foley's, and I gotta tell you, he was so nice. But I got away from him. I had to leave. He stayed in Foley's till 4:00 in the morning, just talking to people. I mean, he doesn't. He doesn't like the media, but he's a good guy. So I mean, or the other. I mean, the other way around is. I mean, for me, whenever you find out that somebody that, like Mike Stanley told me that he was my first favorite Yankee, and he was telling me that. Mike Lowell. He was telling me that I asked him about this, and he said, "Listen." He said, "I got to meet my idol. I won't say who it is, but he said," and he just treated me like a complete ass. I said, "Were you a teenager?" He said, "No, he was presenting me with my Gold Glove Award at third." And I was like,
"Wow." Mike Lowell is one of the best guys ever, isn't he? He is. I think for me, I was lucky. Roger was my idol as a kid. And as I said, I was on the field interviewing him after win number 300. My dad broadcast his first win. And then when he came back to the Yankees in 2007, I was there.
Susan. Oh my God, Roger's in charge.
That was exciting. I love Susan. I mean, I was a little kid when she broke in at broadcasting, and she's a Hall of Famer. I mean, she literally should be in the Hall of Fame.
I should your dad.
Yeah, I hope he gets in soon. And John Sterling too. I mean, I love John. The three of them are very good friends. But yeah, Clemens was my all-time idol, and it didn't disappoint me. I remember when the Sox were playing the Yankees at the end of that 2007. It's kind of one of my favorite memories. And just another, like the George Brett story I told you, where guys are just they're baseball players. They're just, and they like you if they do this. And Clemens, I remember I was sitting in like the front row, texting the station or writing a script or something. And this big arm hit me, boom, right in the back, and it was with a glove. And it was Clemens. He's like, "Where's your old man?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." He was so big and strong. But he was my all-time favorite. And you know something, Shaun? You're absolutely right. I mean, he and my dad have done so. They're so close, but they have done so much. Or Roger has done so much for charity that people don't get to see. They don't. They see the intimidating guy. That's what he wanted on the mound. I mean, he was a student of Nolan Ryan as a kid. He would go and he would watch Nolan just warm up. And Nolan was an intimidator. My great Nolan Ryan story, by the way, I'm doing a game on it was my birthday. It was a Clemens game where he came back in June of 2006, June 22nd. And I got the flu or something before the game. I'm interviewing Nolan Ryan in the tunnel while the game's going on. And I'm like, I'm dying. I get the flu and I can't not work. And he's like, "All right, we're going to get you to see our trainer." And I think he went and got me like Advil, and like the trainer came out and saw me. So, I mean, those are two of my idols. So, yeah, I haven't really had a bad experience with people that I grew up watching. one of my stories at Channel 5 was there was one of my favorite authors. Oh, one of my favorite authors who should not be named, nonfiction or fiction, sorry, was in the green room. And I was probably really the only one who really knew who he was. And there's Joe Montana. And I'm like, oh, I'll go say hi to this guy and like leave Montana alone. I mean, he's Joe Montana, and I'm sure he doesn't want to be bugged by a sports guy. Turns out Montana was the way cooler of the two. And I'm like, he was just such a sweet guy, and telling stories about Notre Dame, telling stories about football and what made Brady great, what made the Niners great. And I'm like, the guy that I buy all of his books was kind of a jerk to me. So I guess that's the closest thing I've had to anybody kind of really being a jerk to me.
So like we said, you bounced from, let me see if I have this right. You went from New York 1 to CBS to ESPN to Fox. And then you decided to move back to Boston.
Yeah, they were wonderful to me at Fox 5, and it was I had another year to go on my contract, and it was a tough decision. But this is the station I grew up watching, and just a wonderful opportunity. And it probably wasn't going to come around again, so I came home to be a news reporter, a news anchor, and my dad's not going to do this forever. So it's a great opportunity, and to be closer to the family, and it's really wonderful. I mean, I get to see my dad a lot at the ballpark. The Yankees, my dad would be in New York, 5 or 6 times a year. I even had him fill in for me anchor one time. And we'd always go to lunch at Foley's, and he had his routine down. And so I got to see him a lot, but it's different here. Like, if I go over to the ballpark, tonight, which, in non-COVID times, you got to give 48 hours now before, just alerting people to go. But, if I go over to the ballpark, I see him, or if I, went to spring training, I'd see him and, hang out. So that makes it different and nice. Although, Shaun, you're going to find this hard to believe that now that one thing I experienced different is my parents have a little bit more advice. Well, why didn't you lead with this the other day? I didn't get this one in New York. And I got one for you, right? So we're setting it up like this. The whole Colt control room heard me, heard my mother. I'm about to interview my dad he got us a good rating for our Sunday night show, a real good rating. And all you hear my mother in the background is, you're not to call him Joe on TV. He's your father. You're to call him dad. I hate when such and such, or I hate when guys call their dad by their first name. And we all know it's your dad. Everybody, people in the business that do that, you're not going to do that. And the whole control room hears it. The whole control room. My producer hears it. Then our editor hears it. They thought that was the funniest thing, and she was serious.
Listen, she is the matriarch, and she's.
So I didn't get the advice on that. My father telling me the other day, why don't you leave with the Red Sox? I'm like, Dad, it's April. This is a big, Bruins game.
So you're back there. So
but it's still wonderful.
What?
You would have laughed if you had heard this too. That my mother.
Believe me, I've been with you. I've been there when your mom has reprimanded both of us for similar situations, and I always listen to whatever Jan has to say. So tell me, what's Belichick? What's it like with Belichick? I remember when you moved back first, you're saying how, the going to the teams was a lot different because like the Giants do things one way and the Patriots do it different. But
Well, I mean, the Giants and Jets were different to cover, very different. Every football team is different. Oh, good. They've been great to me. The Patriots have been wonderful to me. I mean, tell you a quick story. There was a young man, high school kid. He has size, listen to this, Shaun, 17 4E shoes. Can't find a pair of cleats. And they're playing in the spring now or the winter because of COVID. So one of his teammates reached out to us at Channel 5 Sports and asked if we could help get him cleats. And I called around, but I emailed Stacey James at the Patriots, and he got on it, calls me right before we go on the air a week later. hey, the cleats for this kid came. And the coach went down and picked him up. I mean, so they do some wonderful things in the community. They really do. You know, Coughlin, when I covered Coughlin, you know, he wasn't going to let you in on any, you know how it is with NFL coaches, let you in on any secrets. That's the way Belichick is, but it works for him. He's, you know, he's not going to, you know, tell you a ton at press conferences.
Is he misunderstood?
Is he misunderstood? Yeah, I think he and Coughlin are, you know, misunderstood. I mean, they seem, you know, like their business, but that they're focused. They got laser focus, you know. I mean, NFL coaches, these guys literally sleep at the facility 2 or 3 days a week. I mean, you know, they have laser focus. I mean, he's the greatest coach I've ever seen, you know, in football. I mean, and I would put Coughlin right up there. You know, Belichick's by far number one. And you know, I get to know Ernie Accorsi, who hired him in Cleveland.
Last guy.
Yeah, and you know, Ernie hired Coughlin too. And Ernie was just telling me that, you know, Bill sees things differently than most people. He said when he interviewed him in Cleveland, Bill was saying things to him that he hadn't heard. And, you know, Ernie grew up under the great George Young in Baltimore and with the Giants, but you know, so you know, I really got to, and you know, when you have two teams like in New York, you get to see how things are done differently between, you know, the Giants and Jets and the Mets and the Yankees and you know, the hockey team. So you got a chance to see how different organizations work, you know, the good and the bad, and so you know, that was very helpful too when you move on.
So you're clearly happy there, which is good to see. You're not missing New York, but you've had a chance to interview. I mean, the Mount Rushmore of professional athletes. I mean, you've interviewed Pele.
Yeah, I did interview Pele. What a nice guy. Went down to Philly to get that. I knew about him. I think I read a book about him in the 5th grade, or maybe it was Catholic school actually in Ohio, where soccer wasn't big at the time. I mean, Northeast Ohio, it's all football all the time. And I had a chance to interview him. I drove down to Philly. I was not going to pass up that chance, you know, to interview Pele. He was a wonderful guy. Very nice. So,
I have to say, one of my favorite times of the year used to be the Tour de France when you were at New York One, because your producer liked for you to give the you know, the standings, and you were wonderful with those names of those European cyclists that you knew nothing about.
He used to get me during the World Cup too. You'd be like, no, not even close. Not even close.
There were more than one occasion where I got a phone call. How do you say this guy's name?
Oh yeah. I tell you what, last night I was pretty proud of myself. I had a lot of difficult names to say, and I was actually thinking about those times where I'd be like, how do you say this guy's name? I mean, I knew Beckham, but there was a couple names I didn't know. I'm like.
So before we wrap up, you mentioned at the start. So what's life like for you now? I mean, do you do everything from your house?
No. I go in. Yeah, life is you know, for me, you know, I've been going to the office every day. You know, some days I'll go in earlier. Like I went in early the other day to shoot a story on this kid from Boston that's going to be taken in the first round. Wonderful kid, Josh Baez. Remember that name.
Which sport are we talking about now?
Baseball. Plays for my friend Danny Donato, who played AAA for the Yankees. Yeah, I go in most days, 3:30. We do our newscast on from, you know, 4 to 7. And then 4 to 7:30, you know, we take 6:30 off. Then we do a 10 and we do the 11. But I'll do interviews from the house here now because, you know, you can't really, now it's a little bit different. We have a microphone that's, you know, with a pole on it, like 6 feet. So, and the mandates have changed a little bit here where you don't have to wear a mask outside, but, you know, we still, you know, take a lot of precautions if you're around somebody. So we're starting to interview people more in person. Or at least I am in the world of sports, but most of it, Shaun, is done here with my my sweater that, as I
Right.
told you, somebody accused of being a robe.
But like when you, I mean, you're not doing in-person interviews with athletes, are you? I mean, are you getting?
No. This is like when I get like Alex Cora, you know, when I do it right here. I gave you the full experience, the robe and everything. All right, Tom Werner right here. You know, Jeremy Swayman, the Bruins goalie right here. I mean, Charlie Coyle, Bruins center, now wing right here. You know, so that's how it's changed. It's going to be interesting to see, like, you know, what we do and what teams do. You know, post-COVID, we've gotten used to the Zoom thing. I think in certain, I mean, you miss that. You don't get as much the inside scoop not being in the locker room, right? So,
Do you ever think you're getting back into a locker room?
I do.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, there's others. I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to Christy about this.
Actually, sorry, let me take that back. I think you stand a chance. I don't think the written media do, because the written media don't bring anything to the table as far as the teams are concerned. Certainly in baseball, because
really.
Well, here's the thing with social media and that, you know, that here's your TV pays for access.
Yeah, but we're not rights holders.
No, but you can get them on TV. You see, they're not. I mean,
I look. There are people that share the same opinion you do. I do think. I think we're going to get back in, but I do think there's a convenience aspect. So, like, let's just say I'm asking for one of the commissioners right now, whom I really like. I like Eric Bettman a lot. I've been asking for him, and he's got a very, very busy schedule because, you know, the playoffs are right around the corner. But I want to get him on, so I knew I was bringing my laptop home anyway, because we're doing this interview. But I'm like, hey, I got my laptop. I'll just look, if I need to pull over, you know, and get off the highway and flip on my computer and interview him, if that's when he has time, that's when we'll do it. So there is a convenience factor in that part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, not that you always want to do it, or, you know, let's just say I mean, you'd always rather have that personal connection and interview somebody, you know, face to face, and then, you know, talk to them off camera. You know, that's where you get a lot of the good stuff,
Well,
right?
that's the thing. That's where I mean, right now, look what the Blue Jays are doing. They don't even have radio broadcasters, so simulcasting their TV game. You know, now it helps.
Yeah, it was weird. I actually wrote a script last night. I'm like, I knew that the Woo Sox were playing in Trenton. Oh, they're playing the Buffalo Bison. What?
You know,
they're playing okay, all right, makes sense, because the Blue Jays don't have a home park, right?
Well, right now they're in Dunedin, which is 3 miles from where I am, and
right, but they're going to go to Buffalo, right?
Christy's not happy about that because we're kind of hoping for 2 more trips home. But yes, they're going there. But actually, a good friend of ours, Dave Schofield, is doing color for the Bisons.
He is.
Yeah, in Trenton. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, it took me a while to figure it out. I had to go look it up. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, the thing about it is what people don't realize, I guess, is that the owners are the ones who don't want the media in the. And it was a PR guy who told me this, and I said, well, hold on. I said the players have been fighting for the longest time not to have the media in the clubhouse, and, you know, like in some cases not to have the media on the planes. And he said, no. He said, you don't understand. He said, it's the owners who don't want it, because if the media don't have that access where I can walk into the clubhouse and the clubby or someone says, hey, go and talk to Duke, he's not happy about something, and you can pull me aside and say, you know, these guys are lowballing me, or they're playing with my, you know. But if the media aren't in there, then the owners control the narrative, because they control the
Well,
Zoom.
I mean, there is truth to that, right? There is truth to that. But, you know, where you make your personal connections in this business and where you develop your sources is, you know, that level of trust in meeting people. You know, whether it was, you know, how many people did I meet at your place at Foley's that, you know, that,
we had that, but there was that level of trust.
Right. There was a level of trust there. I mean, how many umpires did I talk to? How many scouts or executives? I mean, there's an executive I talk to all the time because we reunited and spent some time there at Foley's. So you get, you know, this business, like any business, is about personal relationships. So, you know, I find that so much harder to, you know, bond with people over, you can't do that over Zoom. I mean, look, the other thing about Zoom is you're recording this, so there's other people listening, in a control room. You can't have a private conversation, or ask how really get to know somebody, like ask how their family is. And, there's just, you don't have that. I hope it returns to normal. But I don't know. But I will say the one convenience factor is that if you have, you want to get somebody on TV and you want to do the interview, and that person's got a really, really busy schedule, that there is convenience here in that fact,
Good luck getting Bettman. Well, you have a better chance of getting Bettman now that you're in Boston and not in New York with everything that's going on.
No, he was great, Shaun. Don't you remember he used to come in? I have a picture of me, him, Cardinal Dolan in the Stanley Cup. Yeah, hey, look, he's always been great to me.
Look at what's going on with the Rangers and this.
Oh yeah, you know what though? He's pretty good at addressing all that stuff. He really is. I mean, look, it's not the first time he's dealt with something like that.
Yeah, but
so, I know
the Rangers came out and issued a statement where they.
Oh my God, that was one of the most scathing statements I think I've ever seen.
It was the first time where they ever actually. It's the first time I've ever seen an organization actually come out and say exactly what they were thinking.
It is. I actually said, our producer Samantha, she read it to me she was reading out loud. Dereliction of duty. Woo. That is yeah, you're right. That's the first time an organization has come out and said exactly what they think. Not they didn't parse words. So that was interesting. So yeah, he's good at handling that. Look, it's going to happen. So.
All right. So before we go, see if Roger's your favorite player. Who's your favorite coach of all the sports of all the guys you've covered?
I'm a big Joe Girardi guy. He was really good to me. Gave me some good advice as we were having our baby. It's a guy I think was misunderstood. I think he's very kind. He's intense.
So was Showalter.
I didn't cover Buck. I didn't really get to
know. A lot of similarities from the point of view, misunderstood and, good baseball guys, but just,
Yeah.
Boone wishes he'd stayed in the ESPN zone, the ESPN booth.
Yeah, I didn't get to know Aaron, the manager, really well. I got to know Aaron, the player, and Aaron, the broadcaster. He's a really good guy. I covered Joe Torre when he was, Joe Torre in New York. That was an experience. I learned a lot about baseball from him. I'll never forget him saying, baseball is a heartbeat. And I think he understood how hard the game was and how hard it was to play in New York or Boston, those major media markets. Who was my player coach? Steinbrenner was nice to me. We actually interviewed him as a kid when I was at Channel 2. Don't you remember he sent a handwritten thank you note? I thought it was a joke somebody was pulling on me. And I'm like, no, it was really, he did. I'm looking around the office. All right, I'm a young kid at Channel 2. All right, who did this? Where's everybody going to laugh? How'd they get the Yankee stationery? Who's my favorite coach? I like Alex Cora a lot. I covered him as a player. I like him a lot. I don't really like him personally. I not only like him personally, he's nice to my dad. They've been friends. I covered him as a player. I got a chance to go to Puerto Rico with the trophy after he won it. I think he's a great manager, and I think he is proof that a manager is more than 2 to 3 wins a year. Right? And I think he's the perfect manager for this market. Look, I saw that with Joe Torre, Shaun. Joe Torre, Alex reminds me of Joe Torre in the way he can diffuse things and he understands the market in which he works. And how many times could things go south in New York with, A-Rod and Jeter not getting along, or the media creating, if probably the media created, I don't know if the media, did we create more of that situation than needed to be, or the Piazza Clemens thing, or George, signing off. Joe always just had this great way of just dialing it back and letting his guys focus on baseball, and then, you would have it come down to 4 o'clock and everybody would gather around Joe Torre, and he would fill notebooks and sound bites and take the pressure off his players. Alex has the same ability to do that. And I actually think Alex is a better in-game tactician than Joe. And that's, Joe won, 4 World Series, right? 4 or 5.
The guy who doesn't get the credit that he deserves, I don't think Joe Torre would have had the success without him with Zimmer.
Oh, without question. Without question.
I mean, there's
without question. But Joe just understood the market in which he worked. He understood the game was difficult, and he understood to build up his players and get the best out of them in a nice way. But he could get on guys too. And I think Alex is the closest thing to that. He's probably my favorite, manager, and I watch him in games. I mean, look what he's doing with some of these guys that, have talent, but have kind of been, reclamation projects, if you would call them that. Garrett Richards, Nick Pivetta, guys with great stuff, getting them to believe in themselves. You look at Devers this year; he's more focused. He's in better shape. What he's done with Eduardo Rodriguez, getting Eduardo Rodriguez to believe in himself.
That's about a big part of that is, and I've always had this saying, is the fact that he can speak to, like a lot of players you just said are Hispanic, and he can speak to them not just in their language, but with the way that they speak the language. And that's one of the things. There's nobody on the Yankees who speaks Spanish. Now, there's no Spanish like in the inner sanctum. Like last year, all the coaches, and if you want to tell me, the strength and conditioning coach or the the thing is just hitting coach, pitching coach, first base, third base, bench coach. None of them spoke Spanish. And when you can't talk to those guys, it's not like you said. It's like it's not what you say; it's how you say it. You can diffuse the situation, and that was one of the biggest things I always said why Cora won, because Cora went in there and was able to talk to these guys not only in their language but in a way where they knew what he was trying to say.
But he's done that with Nick Pivetta, Shaun. He's done that with Garrett Richards too. He's done that with Matt Barnes.
A lot of
yeah. And like with Barnes, I mean, this guy's got a great arm. It's like, dude, you throw 98. Why are you taking 15 minutes between pitches? Get it, throw it, challenge him, and blow him away, and let's get out of here. And I also like the fact that he wants to put the ball in play. And I mean, there was a game between the Cubs and the Angels I was watching, and even like Eddie Perez and Tim Kurkjian and those guys were talking about, how many strikeouts were in the game. I think it was like literally like, even when the Mets played the Red Sox, there was 27 strikeouts. The guys
30.
put the ball.
30.
Yeah, was it 30? It was up to 27 when I was logging the game. But Alex, and I do think the paradigm in the game is going to shift where, we're going to see the ball have to be put in play more, right? We're going to see that. And I want to see them ban the shifts. I want to see, 2 guys on the left side of second base, 2 guys on the right side of second base. We need more action in the game. And I do think they're moving around, pushing the mound back a little bit. That's going to make the breaking ball nastier. Guys are still going to throw 98. The breaking ball, the spin, and we could talk about this all day. But I think Alex has guys, believing in themselves, and he. Other than Joe Torre, he's the guy that a light goes off, gets it the most. And I think, like I said, I think he's a better tactician than Joe Torre. So,
listen, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has.
And before I go, Ryan and Emma, my kids back in Ireland, said to say hi. And on more than one occasion, have said to me, it's like when they see pictures of you with Charlie, they're like, Dad, was when all those times that Duke babysat and didn't know what he was doing, were we like kind of teaching him how to be a father, and
Well, yeah, I'll tell a quick story before I go, and this is a true story. We had a difficult pregnancy. We're older parents, and I was getting a tooth worked on. I'm always the dentist on 23rd and 1st, and I get a call that we had to go to Boston to Brigham and Women's, one of the best in the country, to see a high-risk OBGYN. Long story short, he said, all right, the baby has to come out now. It's, 3-4 weeks early. And he had it under control, but, when you're a first-time parent, you panic. I'm in tears. I literally run from 23rd and 1st to Foley's. Shaun dropped what he was doing. We drove 6.5 hours in traffic so you can get me there for the birth of my first child. So, which it was like, it was touch and go there for a while, but 6.5 hours telling me it was going to be all right. And that's what friends do, man. So
just on one point on that,
I to go at the time. I was, how am I going to get back to New York?
It was the high. I wouldn't say the high point. Obviously, the high point was Charlie. But at one point, we're driving along, and you're talking to, I think, either your mom or your dad, and you're like, "Kiki's been inducted," and I was like, "No, Duke, she's been induced. You're going to get inducted. You're being induced."
The other funny thing apart that was it was at the hospital. They only let 2 people in, so it was me and my aunt. So you couldn't come upstairs. Right?
Yeah. You thought I could come up, and they're like, "Yeah, come on in." I'm like, "Dude, you take care of Kiki, and I'll talk to you soon." And I think you called me back and you said, "Hey, you can't come up." I'm like, "Dude, I'm on 91. I'm heading home." But
God, it was over a 6.5 hour trip. Do you remember that? We were bumper to bumper on the west side. Oh my gosh!
We spent a lot of time listening to talk radio and Francesca pontificating and us arguing with Francesca.
And then so the baby gets delivered the next day at 3:13. Charlie comes out.
Yeah, she is.
During batting practice.
And now there was times when I would let's just put it this way without going too far into the conversation. Every time I take my kids anywhere we stay and we're in a hotel, the first thing to do is check the towels. It's like Uncle Duke said, you always check the towels. And we were in Disney, and Ryan was maybe 7 or 8, and Ryan asked the lady behind the desk, "Could I get fresh towels, please?" Uncle Duke said you always check the towels. Listen, this has been fun. Thank you for doing this. It's nice for you to be answering the questions, but it's good to see you, and it's also good to say that we did an hour interview and never once mentioned Randy Johnson.
Yeah. I still don't think he likes me, Shaun.
No, he does. He does. I've actually gotten to know him to the point where I was able to broach the subject without him.
Apparently, he's a very talented photographer now.
Well, the last thing we we're going to say, you mentioned Clemens. Do you know what Clemens' the passion is right now? What he's really good at, and he makes a lot of money doing.
What?
DJ.
Really?
Yeah, like he DJs for the Bushes whenever they have events. And he does these charity events where he will.
You gave me a story idea.
Yeah, you ask him about his DJing. He loves to DJ, and he has raised. He did a.
No way.
Yeah, he did a charity event. I want to say it's for George Bush or for one of those people, and I think he raised over $1 million. He's seemingly a very.
I'm going to text him and ask him, "Hey, are you DJing now?" So that'd be a good story. So yeah, he does wonderful stuff for charity. So
listen, I've always tried to channel some stories to you whenever I could, whenever we thought we could. And without disrespecting the sanctity of what life was at Foley's. Thank you for doing.
Some great stories out of there. Oh my goodness, the broke stories out of there.
And I have to say that. Be honest with all people tell me, "How do you know all these people in baseball?" I said it all goes back to a conversation I had at the bar, because you were the first guy in baseball I got to know, and everybody that I know in baseball all comes back to you and your dad, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're a great friend, Shaun. Love you, man.
Love you too. Say hi to Kiki and your folks. And when we can travel, we'll all get together either in Dunedin, in Fort Myers, or in Western Mass.
All right, sounds good, Shaun. Talk to you soon. All right, bye.
Thanks,